So the big question is this: how does a dentist like you become an innovator? This podcast is all about you and developing your entrepreneurial spirit. How can we tap into our true potential and make the impossible possible? That's the question, and this podcast will fan the flames of your creativity, inspiring you to break new frontiers and find your answers. This is the Dental Innovator Podcast, and this is Dr. Harry Gill.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Dental Innovator Podcast. Today we have Dr. Jamil Torofdar, who's based in South Wales. He's a young dentist who's made some quite inspiring moves at such a young age. He's bought 2 practices and is setting up a 3rd. So it's a very insightful, entertaining conversation. Jamil's a right character, and I hope you enjoy it. He's recently been on Dentist to Invest podcast, and I listened to that podcast and I thought, I've got to get this guy on my podcast as well. So we reached out, we got in touch, and here we are. So hi Jamil, how are you this afternoon?
I'm very well. Thank you ever so much for inviting me onto your podcast. It means a lot to me. I was actually surprised that somebody else wants a bit of my knowledge, but here we are. It brought a smile to my face. It means a lot more than it might do to other people, but it really did make me happy.
Oh, that's nice to hear. So Jamil's a 28-year-old who has 2 dental practices currently and is in the process of setting up his 3rd, which is a full squat practice. And to save people repetition, you're kitting out 2 surgeries, but the site has capacity for 5 surgeries. So when did you... So you said 2020, I think, that you bought your first dental practice.
It was actually at the end of 2019. I think it was the 23rd of December, 2019. I remember because anyone that's bought a practice will know like how important deadlines are. So it was end of December, pre-COVID. That's the main take-home message.
Yeah. So you were 26, is that right?
I was probably 25. 3 years ago, I was probably about 25.
25, right. So when did you qualify? What year?
I qualified in 2018. I did 1 year VT. I must have been 25.
Yeah, so that's one thing I want to explore with you. So what was the thinking behind trying to go straight into practice ownership? Because it's not... I teach a course for people who are setting up the squat practices specifically. And one of the things that I actually say to my delegates is, do 5 years of dentistry, right? And get good at a lot of different things, and then make a leap into practice ownership. So you've jumped straight in, and that's not a bad thing. I'm just wondering what the mindset was.
Without being disrespectful to you, I actually disagree with you. Because the problem with being an associate, it becomes really comfy really quickly, and you don't want to leave. You don't have to worry about staff, you don't have to worry about autoclave, servicing, HIW, CQC. I feel like once you start getting into that, I think it's very, very difficult to exit. So in my opinion, just go do it today if you can. But yeah, I clinical side, you'll probably listen to the Dentist to Invest podcast. I don't think my motto is different to yours completely. Our business model is completely different. But I think if you find the right practice with the right amount of NHS, UDAs, or whether you set up a squat practice, keep your costs really low, I think you're always going to be onto a winner. Yeah, you might have a few 2-3 years difficulty, but then after that, I think you should be okay.
Right, okay. So you were 25 when you were exploring this practice. So what were you looking for? Did you have like an ideal practice in mind when you were looking for one?
I didn't. I just looked for location. So I don't buy practices on high streets. I need good parking. Most of my patients drive. So I don't know if you ever look at practices that are for sale. They always sell for a premium being on the high street. And in my opinion, that is probably the worst place to have a dental practice. Number one, your rates are through the roof. Parking's a nightmare. It just creates a bad patient experience, in my opinion. If somebody's running late for their appointment, then they're driving around for 10 minutes trying to find a parking spot. Straight away, it's a bad experience. They're flustered when they come in. You're a bit annoyed because they've arrived 10, 15 minutes late. It's not really their fault. I don't know. But to answer your question, I just looked for a practice that I thought, oh, that looks all right. I just took the leap. I didn't have a methodology when I bought my practice, so...
And that sounds a bit mad, actually. That in and of itself sounds a bit crackers, right? So, you basically didn't really. You just started looking, right? So you're an interesting person to talk to because, if you plan too much, what do they say? Perfection is paralysis. Like it's almost like you almost get paralytic because you're trying to think about every outcome. So you're almost saying, look, I was actively looking. When I found a place that felt right, I went for it, and is that fair to say that was your approach?
Yes, and also my business model is a bit different in the fact that I don't want to buy practices in the heart of cities. It's too competitive. And I'm from South Wales myself, and there is, if I opened up a practice, even if I found a great opportunity in Cardiff, it's bang on in the centre with great parking, I probably wouldn't do it because you've got 5 very high-end boutique practices that you're competing against. How many patients are there? It creates a difficult dilemma.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I think one thing I would say, one caveat to that is probably London, with the parking and things. But outside of London, and maybe like the centre of a big city like Birmingham potentially, because they have such big populations that you probably can get away with it. But you're right, as a general rule for the UK, it is probably a correct principle to have, that you want parking, easy access.
Anything I say, there's going to be, you could argue it either way. But regarding practices per se, I just think you just need to go with your gut. Just go bite the bullet. I was in a privileged situation, so whoever's listening to this, I wasn't married at the time. I didn't have kids. I didn't have a house. So maybe I was a bit more put myself out there. I thought, let me just do it.
Yeah. Well, did you have any naysayers around you? People saying like, "What are you doing this early?" and stuff like this, or did you not really?
Not really.
Not really.
Not really. No. Naysayers. Most of my friends that graduated with me, they went to associate, and they were like, "Oh wow, that's amazing." So nobody said don't do it. So I didn't know practice owners. When you're starting off as an associate, you don't know practice owners. You don't know anyone. No. And I still don't know anyone. I could probably know about 10 people in dentistry.
Right.
Since this podcast, I've actually known more dentists now than I did combined before I did the podcast to Dentist to Invest.
I bet.
It's crazy.
Yeah. That is cool. Right, okay, so let's get into the details of that first practice. So you said it was a small NHS contract. What was it precisely?
About 5,000 UDAs, 6,000 UDAs.
And how many surgeries did it have?
2 surgeries. It's got
Any scope for expansion?
No.
So when you're looking at that practice, obviously 5,000 UDAs means you're going to have space to take on private work as well. Your diaries aren't going to be rammed across 2 surgeries. So was that always the plan? You wanted to go and introduce private dentistry in?
I didn't. I'll be honest with you. I'd love to say I had a game plan. I didn't. I seriously didn't. I just went with the whim, and things worked, things didn't work. But as you know, recruitment is really difficult in dentistry at the moment, across the board, wherever you are. I didn't want to have that issue of having a 20,000 UDA contract and not fulfilling it. And then you're just chasing your tail, aren't you, really? So that's why I didn't do it. And cost. Another thing is a 20,000 UDA practice goes for a lot more, and a lot more than I would have got loan-wise.
Yeah. So you mentioned on the podcast with James that it was a bank loan for that first one.
Yeah.
And then, so there's quite a short window here. So you're 25 going on 26 with that first practice. But you're sat here at 28 with 2 practices and building your third. So what I'm trying to piece together is what kind of steps have been taken. So when you talk about recruitment, you must be associate led in that first practice now. Is that correct? And
yeah. So both of them, I barely do much dentistry anymore. So the great thing about having small practices, you have so much immense control. I am a bit of a control freak. You have a lot of control with your associates. Now, if you've got a 6 surgery practice, 6 associates, I think did we discuss this on the phone? I said, if you've got a bad egg there, in these areas, it's so difficult. It's so easy to ruin a good reputation. Very easy. And these people don't really contact you based on what they read online, what you post on Instagram. It's more about word of mouth in these small niches of Wales. In Cardiff it's different. In London it's different. Birmingham's different. It's a different kettle of fish.
Yeah.
So that's what I do basically. So they are associate led.
So how do you find the correct? So obviously, as I mentioned on our phone call, actually, that's one of the trickiest things is actually finding associates that you can trust to take on, the work and that reputation of the business. So how do you go about finding associates like that?
You have to. Everyone has got the ability to learn. So I've said it, and I'll say it again. I'm not the best dentist on earth. There are far. I'm probably in the bottom quartile, but one thing I am good at is, one of my skills, not blowing my own trumpet, is I'm very good at communicating with patients, and inherently patients trust me a lot more. So all it is trying to embed that philosophy, shall we say, into your associates. So spend a lot of time with your associates. Have a look. When my first associate started working for me, I looked through every one of his clinical records. I would come home, my long own day, working 8 till 8, and I would spend 2 hours looking through his records, making sure that I agree with his treatment plan, I don't. And now what we do, we kind of show off now to each other. We'll be like, oh, look at how good this root canal is, and I'll send them a photo of a crown prep or send them a crown prep and say, what do you think I can improve? I'm not afraid of criticism. I actually love it when people criticize me.
Yeah, it's a good attitude to have. Yeah. So you're learning from your associates as well, would you say? When
it works both ways. So he's doing this year-long program where he's there for every 2 days of the month or something, and he brings a lot to the table that I didn't think of. I haven't done many courses, as I explained to you. The only course I've started doing now is for an implant course. So anyone that's listening out there, you don't need to be the best general dentist. You'll become good at just doing it and getting paid a fair amount for it. If you get paid a fair amount for root canals, believe me, you'll do. I used to do my heydays. I used to do about 2-3 private root canals a day. So you will enjoy it, but if you're getting paid whatever you're getting paid under the NHS, it's not enjoyable at all. Because obviously you need to earn a living. You're thinking, hold on, I'm doing this risky procedure that's got huge litigation risk for somebody that can earn the same amount of probably working in Tesco stacking shelves. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with stacking shelves. I'm just saying the comparable salary, shall we say. Yeah.
Okay, so you have got associate-led in both of the practices now.
And therapists, yeah.
Right. So what's that transition been like? So when you first bought the practice, was the existing associate staying on, or did you have to come in and hire new people? How did that work?
So my first practice, there was 2 dentists working here, both part-time. They left as soon as I took over. It was a bit of a disagreement with the old owner, blah, blah, blah. So I took over and I straight away took their place. And I had a therapist that only did 3 days with me initially. So I had 2 surgeries, but one surgery was only operating 3 days. I'm a strong believer in the therapy model for general dentistry. Find a good therapist to do the general dentistry. So then we grew. I bought my second practice exactly a year later. And then what I was doing, I didn't have any associates. I was travelling in between, so I was doing a morning session in one practice, running to the other practice, not running literally, but 30-minute drive, working till late. So I did that for about 9 months. And that was probably the hardest point of my life. It's difficult doing that. And then I got an associate, he finished VT, he joined me in September. I got another therapist then, joined me in September as well, I think. Probably a bit longer than that. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty. But then my other therapist that used to work for me 3 days, I begged her. We still laugh about it. I begged her. She was like, no, Jamal, I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. What if something happens between me and you? I said, no, please work for me. And so then she joined me full-time. So now I've got 2 full-time therapists, 2 full-time dentists. In the midst of it, I bought out a lab at the end of a year after as well. So we own our own denture lab that associates use.
Yeah.
We don't accept any clients, so please don't contact me. We're in-house. I just did it because I really liked that lab technician, and he got COVID. And he said to me, Jamal, I can't come back working the rate I used to work. I'm going to have to start getting rid of my clients. I said, no, come on my books. I'll buy you out and all your equipment. And so I got rid of all his clients. Sorry, guys, if any of you guys are listening, I apologize in advance. And there was this one guy that introduced me to him, and I just couldn't find it in my heart to get rid of him. So he still uses the lab, and I just invoice him.
Oh, right, okay, yeah. Oh, right, okay. So you got a heart after all, have you, Jamil, yeah?
You have to.
Okay, so this is one thing that is very unique about you, right? And I'm not bigging you up here, but I guess I am. Right? It takes quite a unique mindset to get yourself to a position where you've got this almost fearless approach to taking on challenges, you know, like you just mentioned, just taking on that lab tech because you saw an opportunity. It's like you see an opportunity, feels right, boom, let's get it done, right? That kind of decisiveness, is that something you've been born with, or do you feel like that's something you've developed over time?
I think about life in what's the worst case scenario. Literally, what's the worst case? I don't want to be 10 years down the line regretting, why didn't I do this? And I've had loads of opportunities I look back and regret. And I've done certain things that cost me a lot of money, didn't work out, and that's life. Yeah. You can't let that eat you up, because you learn a lot in every mistake you make. In the whole process, you learn. And if I probably wouldn't go. I think my track, alhamdulillah, my track has worked out really well for me. It could have worked out really, really badly. I understand the repercussions I've got on my head. But everything I do is financial motivated. Realistically, it is. So I bought out my lab technician because I did the numbers and I thought, if I buy him out, within a year, I paid out what I've bought him out for, and I'll probably make, within 2 years, I'll probably make money off the deal. So the great thing I have, by having your own lab technician, you never ever have to worry about remakes, ever. Yeah. You'll never invoice for patient, I'm not happy with the denture, I'm not happy with the shit. Fine, I'll make you a new one, it's fine. And as a result, it creates a great patient experience.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's what I really care about, is patient experience.
So you being 28, and you're pretty much in a situation where you're not really doing much general dentistry anymore, right? That in of itself is quite an alien thing for me to hear, right? So here's the thing that I thought when I listened to the James's podcast, the Dentist to Invest one, I thought this guy genuinely loves operating businesses. So if I was going to say as an outsider looking at you, I'd be like, your passion is clearly operation and optimizing businesses, right? So where does dentistry fit into that? Is dentistry a vehicle?
So I've got Asian parents myself. I kind of had no. So I went to study dentistry. My parents were like, "No, you need to do something in dentistry. You need to stay in dentistry." I personally prefer distribution. If I could do distribution, I would prefer doing that. But it's the hands I've been dealt with, and I am ever so grateful of the opportunity I have. I'm not taking that anyway. I'm not being ungrateful. But yeah, I don't know. I like finding solutions to problems. That's what I enjoy. I'm not really a business operator. I just find solutions. To any problem we have, I'll find a solution.
And it seems like you genuinely enjoy that, don't you?
Yeah, so I'm one of them special people that I thrive off stress. I like being stressed. I feel guilty when I'm not stressed. That's going to sound so surreal to
you. Feel guilty when you're not stressed? What are you talking about, man?
I feel guilty because I think I perform the best when I'm stressed. When I'm up to my eyeballs and I'm like, you know what, sometimes when you're so stressed, you've got so much to do and you don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, that's when you start making a list. You're like, yeah, I need to make a list. Yeah.
another thing is like a lot of you might have this. I don't know. Maybe I'm odd, but I find a lot of my solutions in my car. So I find when I've got a problem, I'll be like, "This is how I'm going to solve this problem," and I'll go there. But the key thing is when you have that light bulb moment, you have to pull over. You have to. Okay. Sorry if the government's listening or the police are listening. I will pull over to the hard shoulder on the motorway. Go right down my dear, because I've got a very short memory. And I will forget by the time I get to my destination. So that's what it is. Like we've had loads of problems in dental practice. I presume you have too. But it's about finding a solution. There's always a solution to every problem.
What would you say? Obviously, you opened just before COVID and all this other stuff. What would you say is the biggest obstacle you've had to
it has
find
been
your way
the best
through?
blessing on earth for me.
Right.
That's me personally. I know people have lost loved ones, and I am awfully that's tragic. And I know it wasn't the best time, but dentistry overall, if you look at the market, any market except for hospitality, everyone did really well, didn't they? Most industries did great, except for hotels. Restaurants did well because if they offered takeaway. But most travel and hotels didn't do so well. Everything else did well. There was so much money in the economy. People weren't going on holiday that they had surplus of cash to spend on whatever they want. Yeah. And also another thing, I don't know if you noticed, why dentists flourished during COVID is because people were doing Zoom calls. They looked at themselves in the mirror. I'm looking at my teeth. I'm speaking now. And you don't do that on a day-to-day basis. You'll look at yourself maybe 2 minutes in a day in the mirror, if that. So that's what I think.
That's an interesting point, actually. Yeah, you're correct. Yeah, it makes sense.
It's simple. That's one of the biggest reasons. How many patients did you have during COVID that said, "Oh, when I'm on Zoom, I don't like smiling. I don't like talking." Think about all them patients that have complained that to you. It's calmed down a lot now. People don't come and say that to you as much anymore. But during COVID, it was booming.
Yeah. So you handled COVID well. A lot of businesses found their way through COVID, like you said, although it was probably quite stressful for some. And obviously you mentioned the tragic side of it, which I agree with. What would you say has been the toughest thing you've had to deal with then in your career so far in this dental business game?
What would I say? I get upset. I take things... to answer your question, what was your question again?
Toughest things you've had to go through, basically, on this journey of the dental business.
Making a staff redundant, probably that's pretty difficult, I would say.
Right, yeah.
Being I made a staff redundant one of them redundant when I was 26. That's big responsibility, telling somebody that you're no longer needed in the company. That's hard.
It's hard,
the biggest challenges I have is I try to please everyone. And when a patient gets upset, I really take it to heart. It really affects me. I would do anything for my patients, literally. And I think they respect that. And I try my best. And when something doesn't work, I'm like, if I couldn't get it... My associates will tell you how annoyed I get and how upset I get when I can't get a tooth out. I am so upset. Because unfortunately, I know we warned the patient of a risk. But now they came in with toothache. They're probably going to be in worse pain after they leave. So if, in actual fact, I've done the patient harm, or not harm, I've actually put the patient in a worse position than they came in with.
Yeah.
And I get loads of patients that say, "No, Jamil, you have to take you. I'm going to pay you." And I'll be like, "No, you can't. I haven't got your tooth out. Why should you pay me?" And they were like, "Look,
do you think that you use that as fuel? You know, so you know that that disappointment.
Yeah.
And so do you feel like that's helping accelerate your progress? You know, is the general narrative that you're creating is that, damn it, I didn't do what I wanted to do. I didn't perform how I wanted to perform, whether it be in dentistry or business. And then that's fuel to say, right, I need to, optimize and get better.
Yeah. So then what happens then, because as a young dentist, you were there not so long ago, shall I say? You think you're invincible. Yeah, I could get this tooth out. But then the more experience you get, actually, I don't think I'll be able to get this tooth out. Let me start a root canal on this tooth, maybe refer the patient. So as I got a bit more experience, shall I say, I knew what battles to fight and what battles not to fight.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's the patient well-being,
Yeah.
So, you need to. That's a very important point you raise there, because you've got to be aware of your own limitations.
Yes.
And then, so once you're aware of your limitations, then you can make steps to actually upskill and get better, so that no longer is a limitation anymore. And that applies not just to dentistry, it applies to your business and everything else as well.
I feel like people don't criticize themselves enough, in my opinion, okay? I criticize myself on everything I do in life, okay? It's knowing what you do well and what you don't do well. It's being self-aware, we call it, don't they? They call it as being self-aware of what your strengths are, what your weaknesses, and how you can improve. I'll tell you some of my weaknesses. I know them. I'm not the best family person. I'm a workaholic. I know that. My wife tells me that day to day. Okay? I don't know how...
I'm surprised you're married, mate.
I'm married as well. But yeah, that's actually been another tricky thing. So I got married about a year ago. Having somebody else in your life that says to you, it's not about how much money you have, I just want to spend time with you, but you're not doing it for the money, and you're there trying to just grow your business. And I've got certain milestones I want to hit, and it's not always... 90% of my milestones aren't even money. I don't care.
What would you say is that, seeing as you said milestones, what would you say your goals are? Do you have any like overarching goals that you want to achieve in business in particular?
I want to be that dentist that people go say, I go to that dental practice with pride. That's my goal, okay? So like,
Right.
you know, there'll be practice, you'll hear, oh, patients will say, you get sometimes patients, oh, I was registered with X or wherever, a well-known practice. I want to be that guy that people are like, yeah, I go to this guy. It's almost an ego thing. It's almost a show-off thing. That, and this is going to sound awful to whoever's listening, but I want to be that practice that everyone wants to go to, but it might not be in everyone's means to go to. As bad as this sounds, like, so everyone, let's say not, most people want an iPhone, but not everyone's got the means to go buy an iPhone. But it's a want. You don't need to go there, you want to go there. And that's what my master. And there's loads of different things that you have to do to build that up. That doesn't come overnight. That takes about 2-3 years to get to.
And that's also down to the type of dentistry that you guys do.
Yeah.
You know, like, then you can, when you start doing more high ticket work, then that kind of comes with it. That's more my world at the minute.
That's it. Mine are completely different.
Yeah. I've always said, you know, seeing as you're being honest, I'll be honest as well, right? So I always talk to people about understanding who you are, and it does it with no filter, right? With no filter. And I'll be honest about something. I'm a bit of a low-key snob with the type of work that I like to do.
Okay.
So I don't want to touch crown preps or any fillings. Forget it. I just want surgery and implants. That's it. You know what I mean?
That's a complete different ball game, isn't it? Like, complete different. Like mine and your level, we're completely on different levels. You're 5 levels ahead of me.
No. I wouldn't say that, because I'm a humble guy, man. I'm nothing.
Yeah.
Like the guy that you talked to last night, who we both know. He's on a level. I'll give him it. I'm nothing, mate. I'm working on improving. That's all I am. Work in progress.
To go back, and whoever's listening, because obviously this is, if you want to start a squat practice, find a place and just get going, okay? Like, it'll be fine. You'll figure things out. Believe me, I did not have a business plan before I bought any of my practices. I just went there, I thought, you know what, I'll figure it out. And then just look for ways to make improvements so you're better than anyone could be there. My biggest fear is that one day there's going to be another Jamil. That's my biggest fear. That's what keeps me up at night. And that's going to sound very egotistic. I apologize.
No.
But I'm worried that one day I'm going to get old and somebody's going to be able to do what I do much better. Not clinically, but all the other side of dentistry. Forget the clinical bit, the other side. That's my biggest fear.
There's a lot. That
surprised me.
It's a very interesting deep dive into your mentality, man. Like, there's a lot of stuff here psychotherapists would have a lot to say about. Fortunately for you, I'm not one. So, you know. However, I will say something, right? It's very important to make this distinction, Jamil, because I don't want people to get the wrong end of the stick, right? When you say that you're a harsh critic of yourself, right? I am as well. But there's a line, right? So there's a line at which you can be a harsh critic of yourself and make that into a productive outcome. Yeah. And there's a point where people take it, and this is actually more common, which is why I'm hoping you're going to address it, is we get into this self-criticism thing, and it almost dampens our confidence.
It eats away at you.
Yeah.
You know? So I criticize myself. Like I said to you, I like finding solutions to problems. So I criticize myself to find a solution, not to kick myself down. That's not. And I don't think anything we do wrong as humans is always a learning curve. You'll learn. And maybe I shouldn't be saying this. I'm too young now, shouldn't I? I got a lot to learn in life. Sometimes my people skills aren't the best. But I just try. One thing I will do, I give it my 110%. Whatever I do, I just try. And all the information. So we're very fortunate. Me and you are very fortunate. Is that if you want to know how far the moon is from Earth, you just open up this little device in your pocket. Oh, you might even speak to it now. The people got smart speakers and stuff now. How far is the moon? And then all the information is there. All you have to do. So I have never read a book in my life. I'm severely dyslexic. Okay. What I did. So I can't read. I've never read a book through uni. Nothing. Okay.
Are you serious? Really?
I've never ever read a book in my life. There's one book I've read in my life, which was, I didn't read, my teacher read it out to me, Mice and Men and Spectacles. They're the two books I've ever read.
Wow.
So maybe I see life in a different perspective because somebody's not telling it to me. But I learned a lot from YouTube. One thing I would always recommend whoever's listening to this, put yourself in your patient's shoes. Forget what you think, put yourself in your patient's shoes, and trust me, whatever you do, the journey will improve.
That's very important. Yeah.
Everything will improve. The busier your practice, the more clinical experience you get. The better materials. It's just a tangent. You're on this exceptional curve, aren't you? And the more patients, the more recommendations you'll get, blah, blah, blah. So we aim for about 10 new private patients a day at each one of my sites, which is an unheard of number. In a general dental practice that does we barely do any Invisalign, not much composite bonding. We just do general dentistry.
Yeah.
So there is a huge demand out there for it.
Well, you know what? There is a niche, a business model that I do teach, which I coin private Nash, right? Yeah,
that's what I do.
It's exactly what you do. So when I heard you podcast, I was like, I need to talk to this guy because he's doing the exact thing in that business model. So there is one chap who's on my course who is doing it. So I might have to put you in touch with him to have a chat with him about it. But yeah, this is one thing, right? So you're talking about this progression of these goals to get to a point where you're in a situation where you've got a practice which is almost like a destination practice, right? Where people almost talk about it, how they would like a Michelin star restaurant.
Yes, you know? I love Michelin star restaurants.
Yeah, so but what you've realised wisely is that there's a trajectory and steps that take you there. I think one of the biggest things that people need to have caution about with squat practices is being overly ambitious, trying to become like a dental excellence like Robbie's got in Liverpool, like from the jump, and just saying, right, I'm going to get a bloody 4,000 square foot building. I'm going to, get myself in loads of debt. I'm going to, beg, borrow and steal money from whoever I can to get this done. Yeah. And then somehow I'll make it work. Riaz, who was a dentist that I had on before, he said, he loves pressure. He was saying the same thing as you, but he said, he said, I find my threshold and I get comfortable there and then I extend it. Right? Yeah. Because I constantly need to extend it. But I feel like sometimes people can go from 0 to like here, and it overwhelms them, So there's got to be a balance with regards to your progress. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not everyone will thrive under pressure. You always have to bear that in mind. Like, I know it's easy hearing other people do it, but you have to ask yourself, am I that person that actually, when something goes wrong, I can find a solution. I'll think with a clear mind, I'll find the solution. One thing I've listened to your other podcast. There was a chap on last time.
Yeah, Fresh.
Fresh, yes. I've researched him. A very, very successful chap. One thing I don't know one thing that I really admire about him, compared to me. Not that I admire myself. Don't get that twisted. He's got a business partner. Now, I don't know. Some people, I think it works great. I don't know. I don't think I could do it with a business partner. I think if you both have got your strengths and weaknesses, I think it's okay. Like, you gel together. And he's a perfect example of that. And I find it amazing. But sometimes, like, I get some outlandish ideas. I'm like, guys, I have to do this. But then I think my creativity would have been damped down a lot if I had a business, because I would have had to go and get approval from my business. If it wasn't an understanding business partner, I would have had to get that approval. So another thing is, I don't know about joint principles, but I see in some cases there's some competitors that I've got that are in that situation, and they've excelled. It's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, personally, so obviously I'm getting Gersh, who's the other business partner, I'm getting him on because I want to explore that partnership more. I completely agree with you. It's mad. I
don't think nobody would want to work with me as a business. Can you imagine? I'll think of an idea. I'm like, yeah, this is what we're going to do, guys.
Yeah. You know what, though? I do have one as well. Like, my wife is a partner with me in the practice and stuff. And the reason why that works is because we have quite a unique relationship in some respects, in that she knows I'm a bit mad. Yeah. Right? So when I come up with ideas and stuff, she'll almost like let me kind of do it. Yeah. You know what I mean? Because she can't be asked with the headache of having to deal with me jabber on about it. Yeah, so you need to have an understanding, but how do you find that? That's difficult. That's a part of luck, isn't it, really? Yeah, I mean, even the story that Faresh mentioned of being in that recovery room at hospital and the kid that was sat in the recovery room and they didn't even know each other. That's like destiny, man. You know what I mean? So I learned a lot from him. Oh, yeah. No, you know what? He's the type of guy as well, Faresh, who you could just give him a call, like, you know, and he'll talk to you. He's so giving with his time. Here's one thing I wanted to touch on, because this is something I've personally found very difficult, and I feel like I'm getting a handle on it definitely now. So I'm approaching the 2-year mark of being a squat practice owner. I just feel like I'm getting a handle on it. Right? Is managing a team, right? So you've mentioned one tactic you use, which is keeping the teams quite small, you know, so having smaller practices. Now, how do you go about managing it? Because you don't have a practice manager, is that right? No, so I believe in the shared responsibility model. Right. Okay, so every person in my team does a specific thing. Like, for example, one staff member does, me and that staff member do all the policies, blah, blah, blah. Another one does the staff hours, monitors the staff hours. Stock levels are monitored by another 2 members. So you want shared responsibility, in my opinion. Even if you've got a practice manager, my take-home message would be to everyone, make sure your other team members can also do the practice manager bits of that role. You don't want to be left hanging dry. Believe me, you don't, okay? So how do I manage staff? I'm very understanding as a human being. One thing, principals, I don't think do very well is understand it from an employee's point of view. So we've got a zero bitching policy in my practice. If you've got a problem, you say it to my face. If you don't, I will come and speak to you. If anyone speaks bad, I said, look, if there's a problem, you have to tell me for me to address it. Otherwise, how am I going to know? I'm not this in there saying, oh, they must be having a problem. So we always sit there and we're open and frank. And I'll ask the team members, what are the problems? My team are lovely. I've built up a team of people that I would want to go out and have dinner with. I wouldn't mind going having dinner with them. And it's so important to have good staff, because it affects, I know I talk about this a lot, patient journey, affects the patient journey. One bad member that says one thing to a patient, that's you done. That's your patient experience gone. If that patient was going to spend £1,000, because of that member, you've lost now £1,000, or in your case, 15,000. Okay. So you build up a team that you really like. So I really like it. And sometimes I'll tell you situations you might have had that where a team member will come to you and say, "This person's not doing this job." Am I right? You've had that? Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell them. So I sit that team member down and I say, what does she do or he do that you don't do? Oh, does this, does that. I said, is it that difficult for you just to help out?
And then they will be like, oh yeah, I see it from the other point of view. Like, yeah, they might have not done this task, but I said, what about the other 10 tasks that they might do for me? What if they're in early, really early in the morning, doing this, sending your text reminders, blah, 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 that you don't do? It's not going to kill you just to put a few more instruments through that they're using. Just do it. And when they get that understanding, I think it improves them a lot because they think from other people's point of view. And you should never, ever get into an argument. There's one notorious team member that I have. Love her to bits, okay? A bit older than me, okay? Me and her clash heads like crazy, okay? So we've got an agreement between us where we just embarrass each other in front of the whole team. And we were like, this can't keep going on. So we've got an agreement that if any of us got a problem, between me and that team member, if we got a problem, we call each other up when nobody's around and we say whatever we got to say then.
Right.
So that's how I manage it. And whoever's listening to this, and yourself probably, you've got that. Sometimes you have that team member that you clash with, okay? It doesn't mean that you go get rid of them because they add a lot of value. Some of these add so much value to your practice, you don't realise. So you have to find, like I said, that was our solution to that problem.
Yeah, because I remember actually a nurse that I used to really get on with her at a previous practice, and she always used to clash with the bosses and stuff but then when you actually listened to her and found out what was frustrating it was literally that things weren't being done properly, like plan profiles weren't being updated so that we didn't know what the patient was actually paying per month and what they were able to get on the plan. Yeah. So her things that she was frustrated about were actually beneficial to the practice, right? Yeah. So it's like she actually cared, so... and there's a reason why the boss never got rid of her. It's because, she was actually having an eye on details that are useful, So you're not always going to get on with everyone 100% of the time. Yeah. But I feel like the line comes is if you're not reaching consistently a standard of care for the patients, or if you're not improving when we've had an appraisal and getting to a certain standard that I need you to get to and that I've clearly communicated to you, it's a cutthroat world, So there will be a point where personal relationships are put to the side and business takes over. You just have to make a cut and get rid,
But in them situations, like your other podcast, they always mention go get somebody else's opinion on the situation.
Yeah, you're totally right.
That's one thing that I've learned from one of your podcasts as well. Just because you think something, just go and ask somebody else, do you agree with what I'm thinking? Pull somebody aside and just speak to them and say, look, this is the problem I'm having. Do you agree? Or am I being overreactive to a situation?
Or even having that narrative with yourself that you just walked through where you're like, what are the good points? So forget about the negatives. What is this person bringing to the table? So even if you don't have someone you can rely on who understands the business, you can actually do a SWOT analysis of that team member, very step back from it and just write it all out,
One team member, religiously late. Every day, I'm like, good afternoon. Always late. The one thing is, come rain, snow, she'll be in work late be it, that's acceptable. She's always so late. It's just acceptable. I was like, yeah, whatever, do whatever you want. But she's such a good team member. She manages everything. She does a lot of things for me that she adds a lot of value. Now, am I going to let somebody go because they're 5 minutes late? It's just like, she's always got an excuse. And I'm like, it's excuses I can't even argue with. My mum's ill. I was like, all right, what can I do? But then, if I'm running late, if I run 15 minutes late, I will never, ever hear her complain. She'll be like, no, Jamal, stay back with you another 15 minutes. So, because of that, a lot of principals would be like, oh, she's disrespecting us, she's always late. But look at what she's adding to me. I couldn't get rid of her, even in my wildest dreams. I would never, ever think of it like that. Because she adds value to me. I know, maybe don't book a patient at 9 o'clock, start my day at 9:10, but that's life.
You've got to pick your battles. That's for sure.
It's not worth it. Sometimes dentists argue and fight their battles too much when you can be doing much bigger things. Spending time. Instead of me sitting there spending half an hour telling her stuff, don't be late, I'd rather spend 30 minutes on my Google Ads. That'll make me money. Realistically, that'll improve my revenue, improve my bottom line, so why wouldn't I?
Yeah. So, you're launching the squat practice. What was the vision? So you've got the two practices. You've got an established model where you're buying practices with a with a low footprint in terms of, you know, overheads and associates, because you smaller sites, and a low NHS contract that you can use to mine private work and then build in private work. So you've got an established business model. It looks to me from the outside that you're starting to depart a little bit from that established business model with the squat. So what's the thinking behind that?
Because I like stress. Simple. That's my honest answer. I love stress. The nurse, I told my team, I was like, 3's enough, guys. I think I'm going to pack it in after that. Oh, I'm not going to live too long. And they were like, yeah, we'll see. No, the reason why I went for squat is because I personally believe, okay, please nobody take this the wrong way, I personally believe anyone could buy a practice with an existing list. It's so easy to turn around, in my opinion. A squat practice is another league. You're not on the same level, okay? I'm a local actor and I'm dealing with Brad Pitt. I like challenges. I didn't even employ a dental architect to do all my drawings. I did all my own drawings. I did all my electrical, fire alarm, emergency lighting. And like all the information is there. They act like it's so difficult. It's not, okay? A dental chair needs five things in it, all right? You just get some power, suction. That's all. Just make sure you get the right cable. Bob's your uncle. It's fine, all right? It doesn't need... But there'll be certain things that, you know, after I do this first practice, most likely I'll probably open another one. Most likely. Chances are
You're already admitting, you know what, your team know you well. You're already admitting it.
You would. But then from that project, I'll be like, nah, let me not put the X-ray machine there. Maybe that position's better. So I kind of guessed. I was like, yeah, I think I need a few sockets here. I was with, I don't know if you guys know what Howden's is. Howden's are kitchen design.
Yeah.
What do you want? I was like, what do you think I need? And you sit there, and believe it or not, it's not difficult by any means. I like designing a lot, so I like challenges. That's my... I like challenges, I like stress. Yesterday when I met that chap, I was dealing with a guy that was picking up waste at 10 o'clock at night. And you're having to haggle because I want to save money. That's the bottom line, okay? If I save £100, if I can haggle with somebody for 10 minutes, save £100, that £100's in my pocket, isn't it, really? That's a nice dinner out for... I can have a McDonald's maybe, 10 times in that week? I'm living my best life because I spent 10 minutes arguing with a guy on the phone that please not...
Getting high cholesterol, but, you know, living your best life, yeah.
That's what I enjoy. So yeah, I'm not afraid of rejection. I'm not afraid of failure. If I fail at something, life goes on. It's fine.
A lot of people are, though, Jamil. Like, I'm not either, you know? I mean, whether it's launching a podcast from scratch and nobody knows who the hell I am, right? Or launching a business in a practice, or doing this squat practice blueprint to help associates do it, right? I don't really give a toss. If it fails, I don't care, right? But one thing that I do feel like you and I have in common is, I call it the conscientious approach. It's, if you do it properly, right? So there's no half measures, right? We're doing it properly, right? So but we come from a completely different angle on it. It's interesting it's so interesting to talk to you about, because your perspective. I'm a serial delegator, right? So you like to have your fingers in the.
I don't know how you do that, because I would have doubt any task done to my expectations at my level.
Yeah, but
you listen to dentists who invest. You know, I know my company inside out to a T. 100%. I know my. So you know, you talk about delegation. Okay, I'll give you.
Are you filing your own tax returns, bro? Is that what you?
No, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. My accountant. I was like, listen, this guy keeps emailing me, Jamil, what's this? I was like, I got so annoyed on my second year tax accounts. I was like, you know what, mate? I'm going to make your life easy. I'll do everything for you. I work out my profit loss. All you have to do is open up company's house, fill out that corporation tax return, and do my accounts for me. He's like, really, Jamil? I was like, yeah, you're going to knock off a few £100 because I'm going to have to spend 2 days doing it. So I sat here. I remember it took me 1 day, because you know your company better than anyone. So I recently I wanted a valuation of what I think my practice is worth, and they were there, and I was like, yep, this is for this. Take that one out because that's not reoccurring. how many people know their company inside out? But what I've got a stupid level of control. Is I don't advise anyone to do it. Okay?
No, I wouldn't either. No,
I wouldn't advise. Kill yourself.
You. That's where your people need to learn this, right? Is your model is not that reproducible because they need you, right? Yeah. They need to clone you and have a you there. You know what I mean? So, like. But the real positive though, and the reason why it's so refreshing and why it's useful for people to hear is you don't have like any limitations. Like you don't put any barriers on yourself. Mm-hmm. You just go in for it. You know what I mean? And I think that's really inspiring.
This is going to sound really arrogant, okay? But I personally think, like an accountant, I think I could do their job better than they can, because we're the top 10% of. To get into dentistry, if you're a dentist and you're listening to this, the odds against you to become to where you are is so, like, everything was against you. Think about it, you had to get top levels, and then you're competing with people that have got straight A's and A stars at GCSEs, A levels, then you have to get through dental school, then you have to, you're special. Everyone listen to this, you're special. You're probably one of the smartest people. Put 10 people in the room, the general public, guarantee most of the time you'll be the smartest person in the room. Why do you think you aren't able to do something? And that's what makes, I think, my belief is different. It's not, don't think I'm arrogant, guys. Please don't think I'm arrogant. But my belief is that the odds have always been against you to get to where you've got to. You can do it. Believe me, you can do it. Just go buy a building tomorrow morning. Just start opening it. It'll be fine. And so I'm not scared to learn things like... so I had an issue with the coal mine authority in my third practice. Do you know they exist? No. So no. My solicitors were a waste of oxygen, okay, personally, between you and me. So I was like, the council were like, oh no, you have to contact the coal. So I texted my solicitor. I was like, go contact the coal mine authority. Jamil, what do you have to contact them about? I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to explain to my solicitor why. So I went and contacted them on their behalf. They replied, thank you, Jamil, for doing that for us. That's it. You can do it, but one thing dentists have, as dentists, we're special because we have a lot more capital. Generally, you're probably the top. If you look at earnings in any sector of any age group, most of the times you're in the top 25%. Dentists in general are, and there's no doubt about it. We both will agree with that.
Yeah.
So one thing dentists have, they've got surplus cash, so they'll be like, oh no, I paid £5,000 to design my practice. Yeah, £6,000, fine. It's not fine. It's not hard. You could say, go spend £5,000 on something else. Go get a gardener or something to maintain your lawn. Do you know what I mean? I could probably do that better than my gardener as well. But yeah, please don't. I'm not Harry. I'm not trying to be arrogant. It's just that belief I have that you know what, I can do it.
No, you know what? I think that's very positive. One thing I would say to you though is the most precious commodity you start to realize is your time.
Yeah.
Right? So the reason why I'm a serial delegator is because I realized quite quickly that I don't have the bandwidth to do everything at my top level, right? So I have to then apportion out tasks to be done by specialists in each of the different fields. Now, do they move as quickly as you would? Can they be a little bit frustrating? Potentially, yes, but it's one of those where as you're growing, your time becomes really valuable. Like, and you start to realize that more and more. I'm not that much older than you, but I've got 2 kids and a third one on the way. You know, the kids give you a different perspective on it. Totally. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I agree with you. That delegation works. I'm a special kind where, I don't know, I think I couldn't sleep at night if I started delegating a lot of my tasks. Because if you do it once, the first time you do a task, like, you know, the first year of accounts I did was so difficult. But second year, it took me, so that I spent about 8 evenings doing my accounts the first time I did it. My second year accounts, I did in one whole day. One day I sat there and I got through it all. I gave it all to my accountant. And you learn, the reason why I say it's so important, you learn what you can cut out, where's your money going. But I'm not telling everyone to do this. If you're not a numbers person, don't start doing it. If you can't use Excel, don't even bother. You're just wasting your time because you're going to get sheets of paper, you're adding it up with your calculator. So yeah. So I get it that I'm very, very odd. I'm a control freak, total control freak.
But that's a good thing, though. It's cool. It's cool to see and listen to. One thing I would say as well that I want to pick up on is, I've got two other questions really. One is, how the hell did you get through dental school without reading any books?
You just memorize the PowerPoints.
Oh, right. Okay. You just memorize the
PowerPoints. You just memorize them.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Fair play.
Even A level, and you just it just when things click in my head, I just understand them.
Right. So that sounds like some form of superpower you've got there, Jamil. You know what I mean?
It's not. The hardest part of dental school is getting into dental school. It's not hard. After you get in it, you just breathe into a mirror. If it steams up, you usually get a BDS at the end of it, don't you? You're really lucky if it steams up a lot. You get honours after your name. Can you believe it?
You're going to annoy a lot of dentists with that one. I tell you, you're going to annoy it. You know, the comments you made, that's the one that's going to piss people off, is that one. You know what I mean? That's going to rankle some people up. But, yeah. Okay, exit strategy. So this is an important one. So do you have one? Like, or are you kind of just creating and doing and just not really worrying about any sort of exit?
My goals in life is different. So a lot of people want a lot of money. Some people want a really big house. My aim in life is just to excel in whatever I do. The financials will follow, and they are. So I just do what I got to do at the best optimum thing I can do, and hopefully it'll work out. Somebody would need to offer me a very, very pretty penny for me to sell up, because I'm really, really loyal to my staff, and nobody's ever going to treat my staff the way I treat them. Nobody's going to ever run my company as efficiently as I will ever run it. And I don't know. A bit of me thinks I would, but I don't know. Like I said to you, I don't know what I'll do without stress in my life. Seriously.
You know what I think for you? I think that you would almost, you could then say, you could say to your mum and dad, then I did the dentist thing, right?
Yeah.
Made you happy. It was a big success. Okay. I exited. Can I just go and like experiment in some different places now? Can I just go experiment a little bit? You know.
I don't know. It's just I'm really comfortable. I like the stress now. Do I want to start over again? Probably not now. I'm in my field now. I kind of, it is what it is now.
But even within the field, there's a lot of things you could do. You know.
I would love to. I would. One thing, if I did exit, I would probably. I wouldn't want any financial remunerations for it, but I would love to go to dental practice and tell them, look, you can do this better, you could do this better, do this way. Because, in my opinion, if I'm giving somebody a lecture of how to run a practice so efficiently and so high profit, and I'm charging somebody, mate, just go do it yourself. I'll go and open up another practice. I'm not going to have to sell any course, I'm not going to have to beg anyone to go on my course. I'll just go and do it again. But there's a lot of value. There's a lot of value to add, and one thing. So I advise about 5 dental practices at the moment, all for free. I just do it because I enjoy it. They'll call me if there's any problems. I'll tell them what to improve, what they could do better, and that's the part I like, and that's why these podcasts are amazing for, because I get massive reach. So if anyone needs any help or wants to know more about me, feel free to reach out to me.
What's the best way to do that, actually, for people who do want to?
So you've got loads of ways you can communicate with me. You can. WhatsApp. You can find me on Facebook, Jamil Torofdar. You can find me on Instagram. I think it's dentist.jamil or jamil.dentist, one of them. I don't really use Instagram that much, but if I get a message, I'll respond. I'll help you as much as I can. Bear in mind, everything I said, Harry, the most important thing I want to say is my opinion, okay? And I know I might have offended some people, and I sincerely apologise. But I think as an industry, like I said, I don't know if I've told you before, but I just want dentistry to be more competitive. All I want you guys to do is compete with me. I like it because when we start competing, it gets a better result for the patient. That's the most important thing. We would provide better quality care. We would provide better hospitality towards our patient if everyone was performing at their highest. We will find more innovative ways of improving a patient's journey. But at the moment, I feel like I've plateaued now. Nobody really wants to play ball with me. And what can I do? And, like, it is sad. Like, that's the initial thing. That's what drove me initially. Was like, I want to be the best. And now I've done it. Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
I'm not going to... How long has this been so far? 50. I'm going to tell you one thing before I go, okay? This is fascinating, okay? So, if you look at Olympic medalists, okay, you know the people that win their runs and stuff like that. There's 3 types of people. There's the gold medal winners, there's the silver, and there's the bronze, okay? The saddest person in the room is always the gold medal winner, okay? Because they got nothing more to drive them about, okay? A second place always kicks themselves, because they think they could have done, if they went this way a bit quicker, or they moved their leg a certain way, they might have got first. So they also kick themselves. Gold medal are the worst. They get depression after. There's enough reports about it. Second medalists, they just kick themselves, they work themselves to death. The happiest person is the bronze medal winner, because they think, at least I got a medal. Isn't that crazy? I just find it fascinating. So you never want to be the best. You always want to... That's why I want competition, so at least it always makes me push. It stops me from being the gold medal, going into that depression of the gold medal winner.
Well, yeah, stops you getting bored, mate. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You just want to have fun. Let's have fun. But yeah, that's my beliefs. Anyway.
Well, we're gonna have to meet in person at some point.
Yeah. My coffee's on me.
Yeah. Well, I bloody hope so. Yeah, baby, come to Bradford, come get a curry with me, man, and I'll show you the practice.
We'll have a really nice coffee. Yeah.
If I'm ever in Wales, I'll give you a shot.
I checked your practice; it's beautiful. You very, very nicely done. You employed a really nice dental architect to do that. You didn't you? Paid a really nice penny.
Yeah, I didn't do it myself.
No, mashallah, it's beautiful, and all credit to you.
Thanks, dude. I really appreciate your time, man.
Thanks for listening. Please leave a positive review and share the podcast to your circle. If you'd like to touch base with Dr. Harry Gill or inquire about mentoring, email the Dental Innovator Podcast at gmail.com.